welcome to the video. Today is going to be a bit of a code along as I attempt to make a website. And I say this as if my entire job is not making websites. Anyone who is an engineer and has a personal website tends to redo it every year. It's a bit of a Christmas project, but for me, this happened a little bit late this year just because of uni and things. This year, I do have a good excuse, which is at the start of 2022, I migrated my website to a slightly expensive platform, hoping that it would motivate me to do more blogging. It did not. So now it's time to stop crying every month as I watch the payment get taken for a website that I do not write on, and to move to something a little bit less expensive. Right, on to what we're going to be doing today. Anyone who makes anything even vaguely website related knows how incredibly faffy it is setting these things up, let alone making them shiny. So instead I'm just going to be making the laziest website on. I'm aiming to spend about a day on this, maybe two, and I'm actually building off an existing one, so hopefully it shouldn't take too long. Things that I would like are a homepage, a blog page, a blog post page for each post, and in those posts I want to be able to put text, images, and code, but probably not much else. And a way to update the post that isn't incredibly arduous. Things I will not have. It's not going to be very shiny at all, and I think that's fine. It's just a place for me to write things. It's not going to have particularly nice code just because it's only really going to be me working on it, and I don't expect it to actually be very high touch. I'm not going to be adding anything like likes or comments or anything super interactive with the blog posts really. And I'm not going to be doing any nice embeddings for things like YouTube videos or tweets or anything. One thing I do know is that it probably is just going to be a static site because I'm expecting to have very little interactivity, and even in the long run really. And so I think it's probably time to dig into what some of the static site generators are and what the options are. Now there are a lot of static site generators out there, all of which promise to be the absolute best, the easiest to set up, the simplest to work on. So I'm deciding to go with something called Eleventy. I looked into this a few years back, and I even bought a course which is very good, and I'll link it below. That basically showed you how to set up a website, which actually had more features than what I want today. Right, let's get into it.
So I'm just reading the install on the Eleventy site, and it looks like it's pretty easy to do. So I'm just going to initialize a repository so that I can save things. And then this command should hopefully just install the package. We can use npx to run this, and it should spit something out into the browser. Okay, a bit unclear what that just did. So it looks like I need to use the serve flag down here. So if I run that, then this should actually start running. I'm still getting an error here, but I suspect that's because I haven't actually put any files in here, so it just doesn't have anything to serve up yet. So I've just had a poke around, and I first have to set up some config. So I'll put the config file in here, and then basically specify that I want to use nunjucks and markdown files as inputs, and then the folder names of where I want to get the input from and which folder I want to output to. So if I now make an index markdown file and just put something into there, this should actually show up in the browser. And here we go.
So you can see that it was basically super easy to get this set up, and everything was detailed really well on the website, although I haven't done anything exciting yet, so we shall see.
I'm going to make a file for the navbar so that I can reuse it on multiple pages, and in here I'll paste some links for social media that I want at the top of every page. I'm putting icon there as a placeholder for now before I pull the actual icons in. Now that we've got this navbar, I can make a file for the main layout, and this will wrap every page. And I'll put a few more things in here, so a title that can be passed into each page. I'll include the navbar, and I'll also add a block so that content can be passed into the page. So now I can delete the test markdown file, and I've just noticed that I've put the includes into the wrong folder, so I'll move that. Inside here we can extend the base that wraps this page, then set the page title, and add a content block to render on the page. So now if I load this, we can see that it's got the navbar and the content that we passed in. So I want to add Sass, and instead of installing it directly, I can use an Eleventy plugin for this. So I'll copy this and run it to install the plugin. The docs show you how to use the plugin, so all I need to do is copy these lines into my Eleventy config. Inside the source, I'll add a style file and then add some CSS to test this out. Now if we go here, this hasn't updated, so maybe I need to run again because I did change the config. Oh, something's broken. I've forgotten to install Sass. So I'll just install that. So now if I serve this up, we can see that the text has turned blue.
So I added Sass when I was making this, but actually I didn't really end up using it at all, so I ended up just writing pure CSS, and so this whole step was like a little bit pointless, but hey ho.
So now I'm going to add a folder for assets, and in the config say that this folder should just be passed through as is. Now I can add these assets into the navbar, and I'll update the CSS file. So first I'll add some general CSS to fix up margins and headings, and I'll put some variables in here to dictate colors and breakpoints. Now I'll add navbar specific styling in here, and if we reload, we can see that the navbar displays as a flexbox. Now that I've got all that set up, I'm just going to paste some content into here from the previous website. But right now I'm leaving the section for blog posts as I need to set up the logic to pull these things in. And I'll add CSS here to add a grid for the homepage, some responsiveness and general styling for fonts. So now if I go onto the page, this content is all there and styled.
So I did think about using a CMS for this, but I couldn't really find anything that nice that was Git-based, so I thought I would just use the file system itself as a CMS.
So now it's time to populate this bit with blog posts. So I've added in a bunch of test files, and these have front matter, which contains the title, date, and an excerpt to display. So I've made a few of these, and also something we need to do is group these as a collection by adding an Eleventy tag. I'll do this by creating a config file here with that tag, and so everything in that folder will have that tag added to their front matter automatically. So I'll add a section here, add a list for the blog posts, and also a button to go to the full blog page. Now to actually get the blog posts, I'll set the posts into a variable and just use the collections tag to get all of these and reverse them to get the latest post. Then I'll loop through this list and do a slice that it only shows the first 3. At this point I'll put some more CSS in to style the blog card that I'll put in. Now I can add in a link to each post and use the post URL and title which Eleventy has automatically hooked up. At this point we can see in the browser there is a link to each post, and if we click onto it we do go to the unstyled correct blog post. In order to display the post date nicely, I'll add a filter here which will take in the raw date and format it. And I'll also use a plugin to display the read time. So like before, I'll just follow the install instructions, and I'll put a bit of config in to hide the emoji and just show the read time. So now I can add these bits to the card. So the excerpt from the front matter, the date with the filter to format it, and then the template content, which is the whole page content, and then run that through the read time filter to get the read time. If we take a look at the page, we'll see that it has this metadata. One thing I do notice is that the emoji is still showing up, so I've probably done something wrong here. And I can see that I've passed in the parameter wrong, and there we go, that's gone away now. Also, this doesn't look too great margin and padding wise, so I'm just sorting out the spacing in the CSS, and I'll also remove the list style. Now in the source, I'm going to add a new file for the blog page, and just copy the same page extensions from the other page to add the same styling, and then change the page title. Then I'll put some content in here and also add a link to this page in the navbar. Now we can see the content is here, but the styling isn't. And this is because the file paths are now looking in the wrong place. Instead of fixing this, I'm just going to do some hackery with the file paths so that nested pages also pull in styling properly. And now if we check this out, we can see that it does have the correct styling.
I think it's probably possible to set up page-specific styles that would stop this kind of hackery going on, but because it's a personal project, I didn't really want to bother spending the time to figure that all out.
So I'm going to use the same sort of metadata from the home page to add the same type of cards to the blog page. And I'll also add CSS in to style that. And so we can see that the page has a title, links to the posts, and if we click those, then they go to the correct page. So to style that page, I'll make a blog post layout to style all of those post pages. I'll extend the base, but allow each post to pass its own title in, and then also add the same sort of metadata from the other pages to the top of this post. To add the content, I'll put a block here that will let me pass in the post content. I'll add CSS in here for the post page styling, and then I'll add this layout to every post in the same way that I added the tag to every post. And if we load this, we can see that the post page now has the correct styling. Almost done, but I've just added a few things to check how they render. So I've added a list, an image, and some code. We can see that the list doesn't render very nicely, the image is too big, and the code isn't highlighted. So I'll just add some CSS in here so that it displays the picture as half width. Then I'll add some CSS to sort out list styling, so moving around the padding and adding the list style in for unordered lists, and then also adding spacing between each list item. And so if we look at the list now, we can see that it renders a bit nicer. And finally, to add some syntax highlighting. The Eleventy site details how to do this, so I'll just follow the instructions to install this package, add it to the config, and then add a line in our base so that it pulls in the CSS for the plugin. And so now we can see that this code is highlighted properly.
Much like the options for making static websites, there are lots and lots and lots of options for deploying websites. And so one that I've heard a lot about is Netlify. And they've got a bit of guide on the Eleventy side about how to do this as well. So I basically just wanted the instructions of how to set it up, and it was very, very easy.
And so all I had to do was load my repository into Netlify, and it handled the deploy automatically. And now the site is deployed, and I can see this live, and I can click around.
that concludes this whistle-stop tour of making an extremely basic and quite lazy personal website. That's the video. Bye. Oh, God. Manufacturing. What? Who are you?